Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have some questions, but I'd like to preface my questions and comments by saying that as a mother of a biracial family, this issue is particularly important to me. As the largest growing segment of the population, no one appears to consider the perspective of biracial people during this national debate, and it's particularly disturbing to me. Why does a biracial child have to choose a particular side to identify with? Why can't they just be free to celebrate all the great qualities that they take from their combined races instead of feeling alienated by society? Why not have an honest discussion? That segment of the population, I feel, is not being heard. With that, Rep. Morgan, I'd like to ask, with regard to race, do you have any particular samples of curriculum currently being taught in schools that contain provocative language which has the potential to elicit an emotional response in children? Or do you believe there is language being used, in particular contained in curriculum, which would negatively impact biracial children who often feel conflicted or inadequate, as in they need to choose one side of their identity over the other?
Not specifically on biracial children. I don't have any material there. However, I did bring some emails that were sent out to teachers in Providence in which they talk about affinity groups. So there's educators of color and white identifying educator affinity groups. That's segregation. I thought we left that behind. But we're segregating kids and parents again, or teachers again. There is also professional development on slavery. Now, I guess it's not China that they're going after, but we don't have slavery in the United States anymore. This kind of professional development is going on in our classrooms constantly, where we feel that we have to divide black and white educators and black and white students from one another. It's divisive. It's poisonous, and it shouldn't be happening, because that really does discriminate, and it's offensive to the Civil Rights Act of 1964. As far as individual stuff, I have looked at books, and I can bring them in for you, Representative Roberts. There is one curriculum that RIDE has put out, and I've looked at the 5th grade curriculum. There is, in the paperback books that have been sent to the classrooms for the 5th grade, every book, only one book has white characters in it for the entire year. And that book only has 2 white characters. Well, that's not representative of our multicultural society. And reading those books, they are less about academic excellence and knowledge and more about grievance. And I don't think that that's the kind of education we should be giving our children.
Okay, so I'd like to say, now I know for some of my family members, you know, they've got black in them, they look white. Okay, and sometimes, you know, and there is racism, so I am acutely aware of this. I've seen that racism does exist. I've had to deal with it. You know, no doubt about that. But my family does take, you know, they don't think that everything is racism either. I think they have a balanced approach. They're able to see all sides, but they come from a unique perspective. And to me, we need to, instead of using divisive language, we need to use more unifying language so that everyone is accepted, everyone has special qualities. I think that is so important. The other thing is that pedophilia, as far as the sex education, do you have any specific, pedophilia is my concern. Do you have any specific examples of inappropriate sexual language being used in curriculum, and would you please provide the age range to which it is being taught?
I actually have read the curriculum, and it begins very young. I haven't been able to get any of the teacher's manuals or instructional materials. our schools are making it very hard for parents to get insight into what they are actually doing in the classroom, but it starts very young.
Okay.
It starts in kindergarten.
I guess what I'm getting at is, do you believe any of this curriculum could potentially be considered grooming for sexual abuse in any way?
It certainly is pushing kids in a particular towards an activist ideology as concerns their gender or their sexual preference. It absolutely does. When you can see two little girls who are best friends playing, 7 years old, 8 years old, playing on the playground, and you say, someday you like each other so much, someday you might marry one another. I mean, that would be okay. But it's not okay for a teacher to set that expectation in an 8-year-old. They may get there on their own. They may, and that's fine. But teachers shouldn't be setting that expectation, and that's, I think, what people are saying is the grooming part of this. It's inappropriate.
I have to agree, Representative. I just think that pedophilia is a growing concern, and I think it's very important to protect our children from exposure of erotica and sexual subject matter. So these are the parents' children, not the state. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thank you,
about that.
Representative
Thank you.
Roberts. We appreciate your perspective. And seeing that,
one of the things, excuse me,
the next witness.
Chairman, one of the things that I wanted to point out, there is racism. There are the effects of racism still in our society. But when every disparity, when every less than optimum outcome is blamed on racism, then we as a society don't look for other solutions or other answers. It could be that the political leaders make bad policy. Bad policy, they are the ones who sign contracts that allow excessive teacher absences, for instance. They sign the contracts that don't incorporate teacher collaborative time in the school day so that teachers can improve their teaching skills. They don't hold teachers and students accountable for their performance. And that's why we have so many children in our urban cities graduating without the basic skills to get a job, hold a job, and get promotions. And
Thank
that
you.
affects their lives. So just calling everything racism stops us from looking
Thank you, Representative.
deeper.
I think you've addressed Representative Roberts' questions very clearly and deeply. Do any of the members have any other questions? Thank you, Representative Morgan.